Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 133 based on novel. So let's start. After a few more words with Bai Ying, Xiao Yan left the mountain forest at night. At night, the sky was full of lightning and thunder, storm and thunder. The dazzling white light shone on the mountains and forests below. The light was dazzling. People had to squint their eyes sometimes and open their eyes sometimes. Bai Ying and the old man are still here over the original mountain forest. At the moment, after their hands are negative, the expressions on their faces are also flickering in the light of lightning. Patriarch, this boy is really not easy. Staring at the direction Xiao Yang left, the old man seemed to see that the latter was walking rapidly through the void. When the pouring rain touched Xiao Yang's black robe, it was like disappearing into the endless void. In the previous conversation with Xiao Yang, although every word of both sides was carefully exploring the bottom of both sides, Xiao Yang did not reveal the slightest flaw from beginning to end. His words and deeds made them frown in their hearts. It seemed that Xiao Yang was not a young man at all, but an old Jianghu who had lived for unknown years. I'm afraid it's very difficult to get some other information from him. Hehe, if he really reveals his flaws, it makes me look down on him. However, Xiao Yang is really amazing. It's not only his mind, but also his strength. In the end, Bai Ying's face couldn't help showing a solemn color. Xiao Yang is indeed the most surprised of the many talents he has seen. Hehe, why should the patriarch belittle himself? Xiao Yang is really extraordinary, but no matter how to say, he is only a 6-star and a half emperor. Although our young master has the help of pills, his strength is also real. No, Haoshuan, as I have said, Xiao Yang is really amazing. The reason why I value him so much is not because of his strength of 6-star and half emperor. Of course, if his strength is only as simple as 6-star and half emperor, I will not be so optimistic about him. The old man's words fell, but Bai Ying slightly closed his eyes, shook his head, and uttered a sigh. Then he opened his eyes again, turned his eyes and stared at the old man. The latter looked a little stunned. Before he could speak, Bai Ying immediately opened his mouth and said, "Have you ever seen a 6-star and a half emperor who can suppress hundreds of strong semi-emperors at the same time?" The words in Bai Ying's mouth were just spitting out, and the look on the old man's face suddenly solidified. In a pair of deep eyes, there was a surge of horror in an instant. Bai Ying took a deep breath. Whenever he thought of the scene that happened in Hanshi City during the day, Bai Ying couldn't help but be surprised. He never thought that a semi-emperor strong man could burst out such terrible power. However, this is not over yet. Bai Ying slowly spits out the slightly stuffy turbid air in his chest, and then opens his mouth again, saying, "Have you seen that a half-emperor can swell the face of a 3-star fighting emperor?" Hearing this, the look on the old man's face immediately became extremely shocked. If he could barely accept the former, it would be too shocking for the later word. A semi-emperor can actually blow the face of a strong man fighting the emperor. If this kind of thing is spread, it will make people laugh and generous. However, it is this kind of thing. It is difficult not to achieve it. It happened in. Thinking of this, the look in the old man's eyes gradually became frightened. He could not imagine that this shocking thing would be done by the humble boy just now. "Patriarch, what do you mean?" "Yes, I saw what Xiao Yang had done with my own eyes. He not only beat up all the semi-imperialist strong men in Hanshi City, but also suppressed them with absolute power, which could not be achieved by a semi-imperialist strongman at all. After all, according to the situation at that time, among those people, even the 9-star semi-imperialist, there were 10 in total, not to mention hundreds of semi-imperialist strongmen who, in the face of that kind of battle, even ordinary fighting against the emperor also has to be taboo, but Xiao Yang. But he stubbornly abused them. Those people have no backhand in front of Xiao Yang. I even don't believe that those people are really strong at the semi-emperor level." "Who?" Bai Ying's face was very dignified and said, while the old man on the side seemed to feel the same way. While listening to Bai Ying's words, he unconsciously became short of breath. "As for the fighting emperor I mentioned, it's Sun Shuo. Even for me, it's hard to get him, but unexpectedly, he was severely beaten in the face by Xiao Yang today. Moreover, when he has exhausted his fighting spirit." Bai Ying said in his mouth, but at the end of his speech, there was a sense of solemnity. At the same time, the matter about Xiao Yang's power to control the road was also swallowed by him. Mutter. Under the cover of thunder, the old man couldn't help swallowing his saliva. The shock in his heart was even more unspeakable. When lightning cut through the sky and released dazzling white light, he could see that the color on the old man's face was paler than Bai Ying. This paleness is not because of weakness in any aspect, but just because of the shock in the old man's heart at the moment. At the same time, on the void thousands of miles away, when Xiao Yang left the range of the mountain range, he slowly stopped his body and looked back. It was also dark behind him. "Who?" "Take a deep breath." Xiao Yang's tight body also suddenly relaxed at this moment. After a while, a feeling of dizziness rushed out from the depths of his mind, making Xiao Yang's double eyelids more and more heavy. At the same time, the force of the road exerted on the black robe on the body surface lost the support of fighting spirit and quietly dispersed at this moment. The power of the road dispersed, and the pouring rain in the world immediately slapped Xiao Yang mercilessly. The sudden coldness made Xiao Yangmeng regain his mind and bite his teeth. Only then did he move, start quickly, randomly choose a direction, and fly away towards the mountains below. On the other side, Bai Ying and the old man, after talking secretly, set off and flew away in two different directions. In the twinkling of an eye, it was a week later. At this time, Xiao Yang, after a week's rest, the breath in the whole human body also quickly recovered to its peak. After leaving that mountain range, Xiao Yang set off all the way south, because when he was in Hanxi City that day, according to Sun Hua, the so-called ancient relics were in a place where the Shalin mountain range borders the human field, and the soul condensation fruit Xiao Yang needed was there. After several days of driving, after the sixth day, Xiao Yang finally came to a city. For the so-called ancient ruins, Sun Hua didn't talk with Xiao Yang in detail. Therefore, Xiao Yang knew nothing about it. Therefore, Xiao Yang had to put his hope in some nearby cities. Perhaps here, he could get some information about the ancient ruins. Jinshan City. Xiao Yang, who was wearing a black robe, squeezed in with the flow of people around him. Jinshan City is not a big city. Therefore, compared with other places, this Jinshan City is slightly empty. You can almost see the edge of a small city at a glance. Of course, if you want to walk on foot, it is also difficult to cross the city in a few hours. The buildings in the city are indeed much simpler than those in other cities. Even the strong in the city are no better than those in other cities. Under the perception of Xiao Yang's soul, the strongest person in this Jinshan city at the moment is just the later stage of the 9-star and half emperor. The weakest person is only the order of Dozuan. But in the same way, compared with other places, it seems to be more peaceful here. At least along the way, Xiao Yang didn't see many troublemakers. But even so, it doesn't disturb Xiao Yang's mood. On the contrary, the fragrance in the air and the oncoming breeze make Xiao Yang feel relaxed and comfortable. Of course, although sparrows are small, they have all kinds of internal organs. The city is small, but it does not cover up its prosperity. Even if it is no better than other cities, Xiao Yang still finds the news he wants. After some inquiry, Xiao Yang couldn't help crying and laughing. He searched around for information. When he came here, it seemed that everyone knew. Whenever he asked passers-by about the ancient ruins, passers-by would always look at Xiao Yang with a strange look, which made Xiao Yang feel uncomfortable all over. After several inquiries, Xiao Yang was disappointed. Although those passers-by knew it in their hearts, they didn't seem to want to tell Xiao Yang what they knew and the so-called secret on the premise of no interest. Even, in order to seek benefits, several semi-imperial strongmen surrounded Xiao Yang in the middle of the road. Everyone's face showed an expression like a hungry wolf, and the grin at the corners of his mouth was extremely fierce. Finally, after Xiao Yang released his strength breath, several passers-by with only 1-star and a half emperor changed their attitude towards Xiao Yang with a frightened face. The expression on his face quickly turned into a flattery, as if nothing had happened the previous moment. At this point, Xiao Yang couldn't help laughing coldly in his heart. These people are basically a group of bullying masters. They are forward and then respectful. It's funny to think about them. At the first sight of Xiao Yang's young appearance, several semi-imperial strong men didn't care. They naturally regarded him as an ordinary young man. For this kind of person, these strong men who boast of high strength naturally don't mind beating him down. Unfortunately, after seeing Xiao Yang's real strength, these people finally understood in their hearts, in front of this young black-robed youth, in fact, how terrible it is. After careful narration by several semi-imperialist strong men, Xiao Yang finally had a general understanding of the so-called ancient relics in his heart. It seems that the ancient ruins were left by a strong man who fought against the emperor. As for the identity of the strong man, it has been impossible to explore. However, as the audience knows, the strong man seems to be a strong man with strong soul power, but it is unknown whether he is a herbalist or a matrix mage. It is understood that in his tomb mansion, there are all kinds of treasures, including a large number of high-level pills, countless heaven and earth treasures, what fighting chi skill, medicine tripod for alchemy and high-level array plate. These things are very difficult to find in the outside world, but they can be seen everywhere. Moreover, according to these semi-emperor strongmen, there are spirit-level fighting skills in the tomb of the emperor fighting strongman, but even the emperor fighting strongman will be moved by it. Among all these treasures, Xiao Yang is most concerned about the soul fruit. According to the descriptions of several semi-emperor strongmen in front of him, the most valuable thing in the tomb house of the emperor fighting strongman is the frozen soul fruit Xiao Yang needs. Moreover, due to the attraction of the frozen soul fruit, it seems that the 4 families under Tianjian Gate are coveted. When the tomb house opens, the 4 families will not miss this opportunity. After hearing this, Xiao Yan couldn't help feeling dignified for it. Although he has made a secret agreement with the Bai family, it is still an uncertain factor after all. Before it is determined, even Xiao Yan can't guarantee whether the Bai family will fight him for the interests of all families. In this way, Xiao Yang will be in trouble. At present, he can only hope that the 4 families will be in a mess. He can succeed secretly and sit on the fisherman. Of course, in that situation, the 4 families are bound to send the strong fighting emperor to the scene. It is unknown whether there is a chance to get the frozen soul fruit. However, fortunately, there are still 3 months before the opening of the ancient ruins. These 3 months are enough for Xiao Yang to make some preparations. Perhaps it is not certain that Xiao Yang can think of a good way during this period. For the time being, he can only put aside the ruins, because, after several fierce battles, Xiao Yang now can feel that his strength can go further. His strength in the early stage of 6-star and half emperor has reached the saturation period. He hopes to use the next 3 months to improve his strength in the early stage of 6-star and half emperor to the middle stage of 6-star and half emperor. Although the gap between them seems small, but if it is really put on the battlefield, it will play a role more than a little. For this point, although the distance between the half emperors is very small, it is not easy to see. If it is placed among the strong fighting emperors, the gap in strength can be described as a loss of a millimile and 1,000 mile. Xiao Yang stayed in Jinshan City for several days. During this period, in addition to adjusting his rest, he did not forget to search for the remaining 2 kinds of herbs. Now, all the herbs for refining Bak Bodhisattva have been found, but the 2 herbs needed for refining ice elixir are still lacking. But Xiao Yang was not surprised that he didn't find what he needed in Jinshan City. Finally, he left Jinshan City with a sigh of satisfaction. This time, Xiao Yang went straight to the target and went all the way south. After shuttling through many cities on the way, he gradually slowed down 10 days later. The so-called driving is also a way of cultivation, and Xiao Yang's continuous driving for 10 days perfectly presents this point. After 10 days of continuous operation and running in, the fighting spirit in Xiao Yang's body has reached a saturation point. Even if it is refined again with different fire, it is impossible to compress it by a fraction. This is also a sign that Xiao Yang's strength is about to break through to the middle of the 6-star and half emperor. It was not until this moment that Xiao Yang, who was on his way, stopped and fell to the top of a mountain. Without hesitation, he sat cross-legged on the top of the mountain. Who? Xiao Yang took a deep breath and looked inside. Sure enough, the fighting spirit in the cyclone space has reached the level of complete fullness. At this time, if Xiao Yang makes a breakthrough and improves his strength to the middle of the 6-star and half emperor, it is just a matter of course. For this opportunity, Xiao Yang naturally won't let go easily. With a smile in his heart, he quickly withdrew from his mind. At the moment when his eyes opened, his fingertips bounced, and a black light suddenly shot, turning into the North King in front of Xiao Yang. During the period of strength breakthrough, Xiao Yang needs to be clean. If he is disturbed at this time, his breakthrough will end in failure. This is not what Xiao Yang wants to see. When offering the North King, Xiao Yang could not help but frown slightly. He still felt uneasy in his heart. His eyes turned slightly, and a sharp color flashed in his eyes. Immediately, with a wave of his sleeve robe, 3 streamers burst out, which were placed on the void by Xiao Yang in 3 different directions. The 3 streamers are 3 different arrays. The 3 arrays are all second-order defensive arrays. The energy released from them is enough to withstand the full attack of the strong 9-star and half emperor. All 3 arrays are released. No one can break them under the emperor. After finishing these, Xiao Yang was a little calm in his heart. He bent his fingers and fired again. He disappeared into 3 arrays in an instant. With the injection of fighting spirit, the 3 array plates immediately emitted a burst of dazzling golden light. The light spread and turned into 3 thick breathing masks to protect Xiao Yanhu. Immediately, Xiao Yang took back his mind, slowly closed his eyes, and the breath between his nose gradually became stable and orderly. Until an hour later, when the breath in Xiao Yang's body completely recovered to the peak, his mind moved, and the burning determination skill in his body immediately ran. The huge fighting spirit also surged up in the cyclone space at this moment. A stream of fighting spirit gushed out of the cyclone space. Soon, it separated like a distributary river and turned into several smaller fighting spirits. With the operation of the burning determination skill, it poured into those meridians. At the same time, in the outside world, at the moment when Xiao Yang's internal burning formula was working, the void around Xiao Yang's body fluctuated violently. At this moment, hot energy full of rage seemed to be pulled out of the void, like red snakes. After winding around Xiao Yang's body for several times, it gradually merged into Xiao Yang's body with the breath between Xiao Yang's nose. When these mottled energy got into Xiao Yang's body, the gorgeous strange fire immediately rushed up like a hungry wolf who saw a hare. Without waiting for the complex fighting energy to resist, it had been refined into a trace of pure fighting energy. After passing through the refining of different fire, it poured into the meridians in Xiao Yang's body, following the fighting spirit in the meridians. After refining the burning dew skill, it passed through the burning dew skill route and finally merged into the cyclone space. Under such repeated refining, Xiao Yang's breath gradually increased at an extremely slow speed. In Xiao Yang's slow cultivation, time passes like sand between his fingers. In a twinkling of an eye, a month has passed. Now, there are only 2 months left to open the ancient ruins. The passage of time also made Xiao Yang's body change gradually. Each promotion will lead to some small changes in the body. The direct embodiment of this change is that all aspects of Xiao Yang's body will be improved to varying degrees, whether it is meridians or bones, or the strength of the body or the solidity of fighting spirit, as well as the changes in the cyclone space. Every aspect is becoming stronger and stronger. With the change of the breath in Xiao Yang's body, in the void space between the world around him, the spatial fluctuation becomes more and more intense, and the ripples like water waves continue to stir until finally, they completely return to calm. This calm is not the kind of calm seen by human flesh eyes, but the kind of vibration that is hard to detect under extreme violent fluctuations. At the same time, between heaven and earth, the red fighting spirit constantly gushes out of the void. The red energy is like the essence. It burns around Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang is like a phoenix in fire. When it breaks through, it is the time for the phoenix to nirvana. Under the continuous swallowing and refining of the burning determination skill in Xiao Yang's body, such a long refining lasted for nearly 10 days. It was not until noon on the 9th day, Xiao Yang suddenly opened his eyes in the afterglow of the hot sun. With the last breath in his body flowing into the cyclone, Xiao Yang's whole breath suddenly soared to a new level. Only a moment later, Xiao Yang wanted to vent his breath, but in a short moment, he took back all his body without any leakage. After a few breaths, Xiao Yang held back the full fighting spirit in his body. His body trembled slightly and took a hard breath. Then the next moment, Xiao Yang suddenly looked up, his face quickly became crazy, opened his mouth, and gave an earth-shaking roar. Drink! Xiao Yang's body was suddenly shocked by the long howling sound, and the soles of his feet stepped on the top of the cliff below him. Suddenly, great force poured down and the cliff collapsed. Xiao Yang's body took advantage of the situation, just like a lightning bolt. In a twinkling, he broke through the clouds and stepped on the 9 heavens. After nearly a month and a half of continuous cultivation, now, Xiao Yang's strength has finally broken through again and successfully entered the midterm realm of 6-star and half emperor. On the 9th day, Xiao Yang stood proudly in the void. A look of fanaticism appeared on his face. He squeezed his palm hard and felt the surging fighting spirit in his body. After a long time, Xiao Yang's mind gradually stabilized. Is this the middle period of the 6-star and half emperor? Sure enough, it is still very different from the early period. Xiao Yang whispered in a low voice. He couldn't help feeling an exclamation in his words. Compared with the strong in the early stage of the 6-star and half emperor, the middle stage of the 6-star and half emperor is really very different. As the saying goes, the difference is thousands of miles. Although the strength difference between the early 6-star and half emperor and the strong one in the middle of the 6-star and half emperor seems to be only one step away, the gap is like a gap. If an ordinary strong man in the early stage of the 6-star and half emperor wants to improve his strength to the middle stage of the 6-star and half emperor without any foreign objects, he can't do it in a few years or even decades. It is probably not too much to measure the gap between the two in terms of time. Of course, like Xiao Yang, it is only half a year since the last breakthrough in the early stage of the 6-star and half emperor. In half a year, it has successively broken through from the 5-star and half emperor to the middle stage of the 6-star and half emperor. This appalling cultivation speed can be called against the sky. You know, if ordinary people want to practice from the middle of the 5-star and half emperor to the middle of the 6-star and half emperor, it will take at least 100 years. However, today's Xiao Yang, from the middle of the 5-star and half emperor to the middle of the 6-star and half emperor, the time used is really only half a year. This amazing cultivation speed is beyond people's reach. Hey, boy, it's good. In less than half a year, it has successively broken through from the middle of the 5-star and half emperor to the middle of the 6-star and half emperor. According to your cultivation speed, I'm afraid it will also be in the forefront even among the top forces in the mainland. The void on one side was slightly distorted, and the figure of Jiu was gradually manifested. He looked at Xiao Yang with a joking smile. In a pair of shining old eyes, he didn't feel a sense of surprise. Even he did not expect that Xiao Yang could break through from the middle of the 5-star and half emperor to the middle of the 6-star and half emperor in just half a year, which was really shocking. Hee, old bone, don't make fun of me. I know myself. Compared with those people you said, I only rely on foreign things to get strength, but it means some opportunism. Otherwise, how can I improve so many accomplishments in half a year? Hearing Jiu's words, Xiao Yang shook his head and sighed on his face. He knows how he got his cultivation. Although he may be a rare genius in the eyes of others, in his own eyes, he just grew up to this point relying on foreign things. This is not just because of the breakthrough from the 5-star and half emperor to the 6-star and half emperor. After all, how much of Xiao Yang's strength and accomplishments depend on his own cultivation? Hardly any. Relying on all kinds of opportunities and the burning determination skill he has practiced, Xiao Yang has always been looking for all kinds of powerful different fire. Perhaps in other people's opinion, different fire is the most domineering force between heaven and earth. However, all this is the source of real power for Xiao Yang and the foundation of his cultivation. It can be said that there is no different fire he Xiao Yang can't go to today. You boy, why belittle yourself? Yes, almost all the strength you have now depends on foreign things. Even the cultivation in the middle of the 6-star-and-a-half emperor is also given by the woman named Lengbing's Huang. It seemed that he had seen through Xiao Yang's mind, and Jiuyu gave a faint cold hum to express his dissatisfaction with Xiao Yang's decadent attitude. At the same time, the words in his mouth were also stimulating Xiao Yang. But don't forget how much pain you have to experience in the process of swallowing different fire to get power. That degree of pain is enough to turn an ordinary person into ashes, and you can stick to it and get transformation, which is enough to prove yourself. As long as your pay is proportional to the return, everything else is not important. Jiuyu stared at Xiao Yang in front of him and said solemnly. At the same time, the look on Xiao Yang's face was also uncertain. He thought about Jiuyu's words repeatedly in his heart. The way you get strength is indeed a shortcut, but at the same time, the pain and danger you bear are also several times or even dozens of times that of others. Looking at the world, has anyone ever put themselves in danger because of simple cultivation of fighting spirit? I'm afraid there will be no second person except you who practice burning decision. Hearing Jiuyu's words, the mood on Xiao Yang's face finally stabilized gradually, and a look of perseverance flashed in his eyes. Indeed, Jiuyu's words are true. Pay is always in direct proportion to return. Even the children of the big family can cultivate so quickly by relying on the resources of the family. As for Xiao Yang himself, no matter what is outside, he needs to do everything he can to get it. Xiao Yang doesn't have the so-called cultivation resources. He's just looking for all the ways to improve his strength. Compared with those children in the family, Xiao Yang's strength is hard-won. Ha ha. Thinking of this, Xiao Yang couldn't help laughing. The miscellaneous thoughts in his heart were thrown out, and his mood turned around. The whole person's state returned to the peak again. Ha ha, Jiu Lao, don't worry. I understand what you said. There is no real right or wrong in the process of cultivation. After all, only the strong can control the truth in this world. It seems that I really think much. As long as I can live up to my strength and don't regret it, no one will study the source of strength. Nodded, and a gratifying smile appeared on your old face. In the world, strength is respected after all. Without strength, you are not as good as a lump of dog shit. At least, no one dares to step on dog shit. Let's go and reach the destination first. The ancient ruins will be opened soon. I'm afraid many strong people will gather this time. It's also a good thing. It also allows you to open your eyes and see the world of fighting the emperor and the strong. That level can't be compared with it in an ordinary way. Jiuyu gave a low sigh, and immediately shook his body and turned into a touch of light into Xiao Yang's body. Xiao Yang also nodded solemnly. After seeing several strong fighting emperors, he became more and more enthusiastic about the so-called fighting emperor level. I don't know when he can reach that level. Thinking of this, Xiao Yang couldn't help but have a hot color in his eyes. Do Di, on this Yuanwu continent, can really be among the strong. He believes that one day, he will reach that height, even farther and stronger. But now, Xiao Yang can only focus on the present. The road of the strong should be step by step. The road always depends on himself. Half a month later, in the periphery of Shilin Mountains, a city between Shilin Mountains and human forces. After half a month's hard work, Xiao Yang finally arrived here. Shilin City is a city between Shilin Mountains and human forces. Due to its special terrain, it is different from the prosperity of other places. The whole body shows that there are conspicuous battle marks left on the red city wall. These scars tell the past of the city all the time, and every time after a period of time, there will be new scars, constantly refreshing the future of the city. At this moment, outside Shilin City, thin figures in black robes are standing in front of the city. Around him, people came and went from his side. The disgusting smell of blood filled the air. Everyone's face was a little violent. Every eye pupil was full of decisiveness. Those bloody smells were emitted from these people. Because it is located in the periphery of Shilin mountain range, people in Shilin City deal with warcraft all year round. Here, almost everyone will be wrapped by the smell of warcraft. The dark eyes stared at the city rising like a flame on the earth. In the depths of Xiao Yang's eyes, he couldn't help passing a little Shi color. At present, the ancient ruins are about to open. I'm afraid it won't appear calm in Shilin City. With a low sigh in his heart and a slight nod, Xiao Yang raised his eyes and glanced around for a week, but he couldn't help picking his eyebrows. Compared with other places, the people here look more ferocious and wild. Almost every man is naked. The bronze skin reflects a bright light under the scorching sun. His strong body can be compared with a bear. Whenever his feet fall, it seems that even the earth under his feet is shaking. Even some women are also surprised to see. It may be due to years of experience. In the process of dealing with Warcraft, they have made some changes. Of course, these changes are only simple changes in appearance. But when it comes to strength, the strength of these people is better than those who can get strength through normal cultivation, to be more terrible. He slowly breathed out a breath and walked towards the city in front of him. Bullying himself in the crowd, Xiao Yanmu looked around with curiosity. At the same time, in the depths of his eyebrows, the black soul beads trembled slightly. Suddenly, the majestic soul force surged out like a tsunami. Under the control of Xiao Yang's mind, it did not attract the attention of others and spread rapidly towards the city in front of him. After some exploration, Xiao Yang, walking in the crowd, could not help frowning slightly and sighing in his heart. Indeed, just as Xiao Yang guessed, in this small Shaolin city, there are hidden dragons and crouching tigers now. In this short moment, under the exploration of Xiao Yang's soul power, he has found several strong people with very strong breath in Shaolin city. Now, there are no other people who can feel dignified for Xiao Yang except the strong people above fighting the emperor. Now, it is still 1 month before the opening of the ancient ruins, but this is the case. To Xiao Yang's surprise, so many strong people have gathered in Shaolin city. It is hard to imagine how many strong people will come here in the next month. At that time, when the ancient ruins are opened, I'm afraid it will be another battle between dragons and tigers. However, Xiao Yang sneers at this in his heart. Although many strong people have gathered, I think no one will care about his little 6-star and half-emperor. Fishing in troubled waters, Xiao Yang doesn't mind at all. After casually finding a place to live in the city and having a rest, Xiao Yang wandered around the city. At the same time, he also hoped to take a chance and find the remaining 2 herbs he needed. Tut, have you heard that 2 months ago, in Hanshi City, the headquarters of the Sun family, Sun Shuro, the head of the Sun family, was severely beaten in the face by Xiao Yang? Hey, how can you not hear of such a big thing? It's said that Xiao Yang is powerful. With one person's strength, he abused all the semi-imperial strongmen in the whole Hanshi city. Tut, it's really terrible. Yes, that guy not only hit the head of the Sun family in the face, but also killed many people of the Sun family. It is said that because of this, the Sun family leader wanted to stop him, but who thought he was beaten instead of his opponent. Tut, can you say that Xiao Yang has become a strong man fighting the emperor? It's hard to say. It's terrible to be able to abuse the 3-star fighting emperor strong men. Who knows if his original strength will be fighting emperor strong men. Tut, such a young fighting emperor strongman is really terrible. Suddenly, Xiao Yang, who was walking in the middle of the street, overheard the words from the people on the side of the road. When he heard what was mentioned in the words, it was 2 months ago. After he was in Hanshi City, Xiao Yang couldn't help coughing a little embarrassed. The so-called parrot, what happened 2 months ago, through the mouth of thousands of people, has reached the present, but it has become so amazing. So it is said that it is a bystander. Even Xiao Yang himself can't help feeling a burst of consternation. After skipping the people just now, Xiao Yang continued to move forward. Sure enough, he heard a lot about himself along the way, and those news made Xiao Yang cry and laugh. For a moment, it seemed that he had really become a strong man at the level of fighting emperor in the hearts of everyone. Indeed, for these people, the strong who fight the emperor can never be the existence that the half-emperor can contend with. As long as the strong one is born, all the half-emperors have only the share of bowing down and becoming ministers in front of them. Unfortunately, the so-called bowing down and becoming ministers is never possible in Xiao Yang's view. In the face of the strong, Xiao Yang will only encounter the strong, because he knows that he has no way out, because retreat is death. Now, as for the right and wrong, I'm afraid only Xiao Yang himself and those who witnessed it in Hanshi City that day will know. Without psychological meeting, Xiao Yang simply skipped the people along the way and carefully looked for the 2 herbs he needed. However, here, boom, far away from the horizon, a burst of loud thunder suddenly came. The whole Shaolin city trembled violently at this moment. Between heaven and earth, a mighty pressure that almost overwhelmed everyone suddenly rose between heaven and earth. At the same time, the look on Xiao Yang's face changed suddenly at this moment, and the released soul power came into his body in an instant. While his eyebrows were locked, Xiao Yang's body moved, and the soles of his feet stepped on the ground fiercely. In an instant, he had walked up into the void, turned his eyes, and stared beyond the distant horizon. This video will end here.